Luther King Jr. entered this divided world, beginning a career built on a systematic challenge to the laws of segregation. Born in Atlanta in 1929, young Martin faced this harsh reality outside his door. Yet inside his childhood home, his parents, Reverend Martin Luther King Sr. and Alberta Williams King, provided a deeply nurturing, faith-filled environment. Navigating the sharp divide between external injustice and his internal spiritual grounding solidified the principles that guided his leadership and life's work. King was an exceptionally brilliant student. He skipped multiple grades, entering Morehouse College at just 15 years old, where he shifted his academic focus from medicine and law to theology. His pursuit of education continued northward. He earned a Bachelor of Divinity from Crozier Theological Seminary in Pennsylvania, followed by a PhD in systematic theology from Boston University. These years of study provided the intellectual foundation King used to challenge legal and societal norms at their philosophical roots. In 1954, at only 25 years old, he accepted the position of pastor at the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama. His arrival in Montgomery marked the moment where his years of intellectual preparation met a specific local opportunity for change. The impending civil rights clash found its primary battleground inside the segregated public transit system of Montgomery. On December 1, 1955, an African-American woman named Rosa Parks defied the law by refusing to surrender her seat to a white passenger, a deliberate act that ignited the local community. In response, the community launched the Montgomery Bus Boycott, a grueling campaign of physical endurance lasting 380 long days. King emerged as the leader of this massive movement. His meticulously crafted speeches galvanized the weary protesters, holding the community together through an arduous year. The retaliation was severe. King received constant death threats, and his family home was bombed. Through it all, he refused to abandon the tactic of peaceful resistance. Ultimately, the strategy succeeded. The Supreme Court handed down a decisive ruling, declaring Montgomery's bus segregation laws unconstitutional. This local victory carried massive national implications. It proved definitively that disciplined, nonviolent resistance could dismantle entrenched racist laws. To replicate the Montgomery victory across the entire South, King founded the Southern Christian Leadership Conference in 1957. The organization operated on the core philosophy of nonviolent civil disobedience. Inspired by Mahatma Gandhi, this was an active, calculated confrontation of unjust laws, rather than passive compliance. The SCLC executed this strategy meticulously, organizing widespread peaceful demonstrations, targeted sit-ins, and sustained public marches throughout the region. The state responded to these peaceful citizens with extreme brutality, unleashing high-pressure fire hoses and police dogs to break the demonstrators' ranks. By maintaining unbroken dignity while enduring this televised violence, the protesters captured the moral high ground. They forced the conscience of the nation to watch the ugly reality of Southern segregation. As the movement expanded, major dominoes began to fall, starting with the integration of interstate travel achieved during the 1961 Freedom Rides. 2 years later, over 250,000 people converged for the 1963 March on Washington, forming an overwhelming chorus demanding economic justice and equal civil rights. This document outlines the legislative climax of the movement, the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Once signed into law, this legislation officially ended legal segregation and discrimination across the country, fulfilling the primary objective of King's earliest campaigns. Tragically, King's life was cut short when he was assassinated on April 4, 1968, at only 39 years old. Martin Luther King Jr.'s unique combination of theological intellect and unyielding moral courage altered the social landscape of America, establishing a legacy of human dignity that echoes globally.
On August 28, 1963, more than 250,000 people flowed into the nation's capital for the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. They traveled from every state in the country, bringing together individuals across racial, economic, and religious lines into a single, massive demonstration. Gathering around the reflecting pool, this immense crowd had a specific objective: to peacefully compel the federal government to ensure civil rights, guarantee voting access, and address deep economic disparities. This disciplined, orderly assembly created the optimal environment for Martin Luther King Jr. to step to the podium and deliver his defining public address. Over the course of 17 minutes, King's words captivated the hundreds of thousands present and resonated across global radio and television broadcasts. 8 separate times during the speech, he repeated the phrase, "I have a dream," using it as a rhythmic anchor to project a clear image of what a united America could look like. He detailed a specific hope for the next generation, asking for a society where his children would be evaluated by their personal integrity and actions, entirely separate from the color of their skin. By framing the struggle through his own children's future, King elevated a set of domestic policy demands into a universal standard for human dignity. Securing the right to vote required facing brutal physical resistance. In 1965, peaceful protesters in Selma, Alabama, were beaten by armed state troopers in an event that became known as Bloody Sunday. In response, King led hundreds of thousands of supporters on a 54-mile march from Selma to Montgomery, maintaining their progression despite constant threats of violence. The sheer persistence of these marchers generated immense national pressure, compelling Congress to pass the Voting Rights Act of 1965, stripping away legal barriers that had blocked African Americans from the ballot box. Writing that vision into federal law required individuals to put their bodies on the line, proving the moral authority of their cause through personal risk. Recognition for this strategy soon reached the international stage. In 1964, at 35 years old, King became the youngest man at the time to be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in Oslo, Norway. He immediately took the entirety of the $54,000 prize money and distributed it among various civil rights organizations. The award formally validated his core thesis that peaceful resistance was an effective, globally recognized methodology for dismantling systemic oppression. King's vision evolved into a demand for a revolution of values, placing human needs above profit. To address this, he launched the Poor People's Campaign in 1968, seeking to unite and elevate Americans of all races who were trapped in poverty. He also began criticizing the Vietnam War, arguing that massive resources spent on military conflict should instead be used to build opportunities at home. This diagram illustrates his expanded worldview. King linked racial inequality, poverty, and global conflict together as a single, rigid structure of intertwined failures. Because they feed into one another, reducing one without addressing the others simply causes the remaining issues to grow in response. He concluded that true equality required rethinking how society as a whole allocated its wealth and its attention. On April 4, 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee. He was 39 years old. Shock and grief immediately swept through communities across the globe. However, within weeks, thousands of activists moved forward with his planned Poor People's Campaign in Washington, turning a moment of total loss into a renewed, active commitment to his cause. Today, his birthday is recognized as a federal holiday, and his likeness stands permanently carved into stone in the nation's capital. While his life ended prematurely, his philosophy survived, providing a methodology that continues to guide social movements across the globe. First, peaceful resistance is highly effective, proving that organized discipline can dismantle armed oppression without resorting to the same tactics. Second, the moral conviction of a single person has the capacity to scale outward and mobilize millions of individuals. Third, delaying action allows inequality to fester. Society must move urgently to correct inequities the moment they are identified. Finally, liberty is entirely interconnected. Securing rights for one specific group is an incomplete victory if others remain marginalized. These principles serve as an active, functional framework for anyone organizing for social change today. Significant historical progress has been made, but King's vision of eliminating deep social and economic divides is an ongoing project. His legacy is an open invitation,
asking the next generation to step forward and carry the work further. If this history inspired you, please hit the like button so we can share King's mission with a wider audience. Subscribe to the channel to join our community and explore more of the vital movements that have shaped our world. Share this video with anyone who could use a reminder of the power we hold when we stand united. Thank you for watching. Let's take up the mantle, keep the dream alive, and continue building a community where everyone can thrive.